one of the big assumptions that people make about China's foreign policy initiatives and its more assertive behavior in recent years is that it's because of greater PLA influence. And that's a reasonable assumption, but the question is, does a scholarly look at the matter bear that out? And so what this book does is we've assembled a lot of some of the top PLA experts, and they're looking at specific processes, specific entities, and specific issue areas to determine what precisely is the role of the PLA, what kind of influence they have in national security policy making. Autonomy for the PLA should not be equated with independence, because one of the most important things to understand about the Chinese military is that it's a party army, not a state army. And so it's very much under the control of the party, and there are mechanisms for ensuring that the party controls the gun. And yet, within the domain of military affairs, the PLA has much more leeway to determine its own doctrine, its own force structure. One of the most important entities in the PLA, in the national security defense policy realm, is the Central Military Commission. And the Central Military Commission is composed completely of uniformed top brass, with the exception of the chair, who is currently President Xi Jinping, who of course also holds the position of General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party and Chairman of the Central Military Commission. So he is the key mechanism of civilian control of China's military. And that Central Military Commission decides all key defense policy issues. When you look at China as an actor, in global affairs and in Asian affairs, of course, you need to disaggregate that and look at identify different bureaucratic actors. And talk about China being not just a party state, but a party-military-state. The emphasis on preparing for military struggle, that sounds very bellicose to foreign audiences, and understandably so. I think my sense is the main audience for that is the PLA itself and the Chinese people, to emphasize that the military should be ready to, if necessary, to fight and defend the interests and sovereignty of China. It's an attempt by Xi also to put his personal imprimatur on military affairs, on defense policy, and is meant also as a corrective, I think, to the so-called new historic missions that his predecessor launched back in 2004, that tended to emphasize the non-combat missions of the PLA, which are clearly important. But I think what Xi was trying to do was to say, don't forget, comrades in uniform, that your number one job is to fight and win the nation's wars. Well, foreign policy issues like Korea are, of course, a concern of the PLA, in addition to being a larger national security issue for the Chinese state. Most important thing from a Chinese perspective is on their all around China's periphery is to have stability, and or what I call China has a buffer strategy, meaning that all around its periphery it would prefer to have stable and non-aligned or pro-China countries. And so in that sense, North Korea more or less fits in that category. Of course, it's a buffer between China and the Republic of Korea, U.S. Alliance, where, of course, U.S. troops are posted. North Korea is viewed as an important, albeit very imperfect buffer, a problematic and fragile buffer, but a buffer nonetheless. And technically, it's the only military ally of China. Conclusions are that the PLA is actually not as influential as one might think, but it varies according to which area you're looking at. And the main, the area in which it is most influential is on military matters, on defense policy. And what this bears out findings of other research which emphasizes the PLA's greater autonomy in national defense and military affairs, and but at the same time it tends to have less influence in political matters and what we call mixed areas, issue areas that tend to have some military dimension and a political dimension.